Welcome to the iWrite Radio Videocast podcast show, Thursday, the 21st of January. My name's Stuart Lockhead. My guests today are the usual crew. We'll start off with that. Norrie Stewart. Hi there, Norrie.
Hi, guys.
Jimmy Hutton. Hi there, Jimmy.
All right.
All right. And Phil Attridge. Hi there, Phil.
Hi there, Rick.
Today we have a press briefing report from Jimmy. I must admit I was shouting at the TV halfway through it. We also have concerns about the popularity of Nicola Sturgeon and the move to independence by women as opposed to men, and Lesley Riddoch's opinion on that. Phil will give us a report on a YouGov poll. I'm not exactly sure what it's about.
It's on what the British public would like the fate to be for Tony Blair.
Oh, right. Okay. That's fair enough. Tony Blair. Send him to jail. Is that it?
Ooh. I was going to change my name to Albert Pierpoint, actually.
Okay. And then we might even get exercised, as they say, have a rammy about what's happened to Geoff Aberdein, Alex Salmond's chief of staff, who's been muzzled. He's not allowed to present his evidence to the inquiry. We'll let Jimmy go again with the press reviews.
Yeah, well, the press of the day was with John Swinney, so quite a few questions I found rather anodyne. They were asking him, about schools going back and the timeline and whether they were going to do it stage by stage and that. And I understand that because he's education secretary, but they basically just tell you on Tuesday that schools aren't gone back till at least the middle of February. So give them time to work out what they're going to do. And then we got on to the Tory attack line from yesterday that somehow the Scottish government is finagling away some loads and loads of vials of vaccine because they don't want to vaccinate people. Abject bullshit. But I watched it on the BBC, so I got to listen to the dulcet tones of Douglas Ross pushing that line afterwards. A line in which they are using the BMA as justification for it, and particularly Dr. Boost, who's the head of the GP committee at the BMA in Scotland. That'd be the same Dr. Boost who's now self-isolating because he chose to go to a work party. So I think we can maybe guess at just how efficient and effective and how much it should be listened to by that fact and that fact alone. But the actual line kind of bugs me a wee bit. You've got Tories hinting, as I say, that we're sitting on vaccines. We're not getting out there quick enough. Their numbers were absolutely rubbish on STV last night, by the way. But it's all about, they're trying to push this line that GPs should be ordering it rather than going through the Scottish government because somehow that'd work. And that's all to push the Tory idea of clinical commissions that they introduced down south. That's not going to happen up here. That's privatisation by the back door. And frankly, when you have GPs picking up the phone, they call National Services Scotland, who organise everything for them. GPs probably didn't even order paper clips for themselves. They certainly didn't order other medical supplies. NSS do it. There's a reason for that, because NSS are far better at doing it than in any other part of the UK. We saw that last year when we had very few problems with PPE, other than in private care homes, who then got sorted out as soon as NSS got involved. So it's just the Tories trying to mess about with our NHS. And frankly, I'm a bit disappointed that the press are allowing themselves to be played quite so easily by Conservative central office.
I watched the BBC as well, because I thought nobody else would.
Wee Paddy gave him a slap, didn't he?
Oh, aye. Which was kind of a point I'm going to come to. It's this acceptance of willful ignorance. Mm-hmm. This idea that, right, you've got, 700,000 vaccines, which aren't single shot vaccines. There's 5 in a bottle or 10 in a bottle. So between AstraZeneca and the GP surgery, these have to be broken down. They have to be broken down sensibly and safely. They have to be sent out to people in the right numbers for them to use. It's not a case of AstraZeneca get a phone call. I need 45 vials, which equates to what, 225 shots. Could you send them to Dr. Billy Boggs in Leith? You know, I mean, it's ludicrous. The whole idea of it is ludicrous. But it's the Tories. And, you know, they'd far rather have a monumental cock-up, as long as it was a private sector's cock-up, than get it right with the National Health Service.
Mm-hmm.
Bill, did you watch it?
No, but apart from that, no, I was listening to it on the radio. Okay. But apart from that, the last thing they'd want is Scotland to look better. So the whole is drag it in there, and why anybody gives any credit down there, it's just basically Boris giving quantitative easing to all his dodgy pals and companies and everywhere. And yeah, as you just said, they want us to do the same.
I mean, I was watching it, and what's that spoof thing on that somebody does on the internet? Was it the room next door? The guy,
yeah,
he pretends to be coaching whoever's standing at the podium and shouts and yells. And I was shouting and yelling at John Swinney because it wasn't the best of performances. But more importantly, I'm going to attack the BBC. I don't know how many people saw on the day, was that yesterday, because time goes strangely at the moment, when Joe Biden took over as president. Fox News in America had a strapline along the bottom. It said, Joe Biden becomes president and 900,000 Americans have died of a virus. Now that was cleared. I mean, it's just obviously not, most people won't believe the connection, but that's what they do on Fox News. Now they do the same thing on the BBC. They're just more subtle. What they did today when they opened the show at 1 o'clock, the BBC One show, they mentioned that UK, there was 110,000 deaths now, terrible death rate. But they also said, and Scotland's got the worst excess deaths in 129 years. Now, it's slightly more subtle than Fox News, but it's the same game. Attack, it's SNP bad.
I would be absolutely astonished if Scotland hadn't had the worst excess death in recorded history last year. We're in the middle of a global pandemic. I'd be interested to know when Wales, Northern Ireland, the Republic of Ireland, and England published their excess death stats, just at how different they all are. I'd imagine they'd all be relatively similar.
Wait a minute. So Scotland's got a worse death rate than they
had
it's the worst, during the flu pandemic.
Think about the collection of figures. The data won't exist. The reliable data won't exist for that.
Well, 129 years ago makes it 1892.
Well, Norrie, they did point out that it was in peacetime. So the Spanish flu was, right. A lot of those deaths might have fallen into 1918 as well. But as Stuart says, that the accurate data maybe doesn't exist, but certainly I wasn't surprised at that, as I say, and it'll be interesting to see. I'd imagine it'll be the same for all the other home nations as well.
Right. I want to sort of, this is uncomfortable for me because I don't trust the Greens.
Yeah, but you want to praise Paddy, don't you?
Patrick Harvey came on after Dross and basically was sensible. He explained what a supply line was, how 700,000 vaccine shots could be spread along that supply line at various points, etc., etc. And I actually had to kind of smile to myself.
Yeah, I did. I did as well, mate. I loved his line that Douglas Ross was twisting facts to undermine public confidence in the vaccination programme. That's a line that should have been coming from the government this entire week, and Paddy's the first one to come out and say it. So kudos to me, Mr. Harvey.
I thought he was good. So we won't see him again this week.
No, he'll be bad for the BBC for at least a fortnight, mate.
That's all right. You see him at pedestrian crossing. The wee green man. That's what I say to the dog. There's Patrick Harvey. Cross we go.
No. I must have, even after the introduction of the BBC show at 12 o'clock, they even had a SNP bad go at vaccination is the way out, but Scotland has only vaccinated 6.9% of adults, whereas somebody just mentioned is it in the 9% or something in northeast England. It's like, why?
The test to this whole thing will be in what, probably 2 to 3 weeks, when the figures cross over and Scotland's vaccinations start overtaking England's. That will not be reported.
At that point, they'll either not be reported or we'll be told we have some kind of geographic or demographic advantage that's shown up to that. Just before we go on, I just wanted to point out and say to you guys, I mean, we know that Tories have got brass necks. We know that. But we Doogie Ross, you couldn't have marked that boy with a blowtorch. He actually sat there and had a pop at the SNP government for changing their target. I mean, that's delightful coming for a Tory. How many times did they change their NHS targets, before the waiting time targets, for example, before they just dropped them altogether because they proved too difficult to hit?
Well, my memory of this accusation that's been levelled at Jean Freeman, and I can't be 100% sure, I'll maybe go back and see if I can find it, was that what she said was, we hope to get all nursing homes and 80-year-olds done by the end of January or the first few days of February. That's what I remember her saying.
Well, I particularly remember that she said, we hope to. It wasn't set in stone as a target because it couldn't be. They didn't know, up until last week, they didn't know how many doses of any vaccine they were getting in February. They were only informed up to the end of January. So I'm pretty sure she didn't promise anything.
But to some extent, we're getting trapped into the narrative, as they say, that the Tories want us to be talking about. Yesterday morning, Piers Morgan scalped Brandon Lewis, the Northern Ireland secretary, who sat there pumping away about how Britain's leading the world on vaccinations. And as Piers Morgan said, you won't discuss with us about worldwide comparisons about Britain having the worst death rate in the world, but you want to compare Britain with the rest of the world when it comes to vaccinations.
Absolutely.
I'll find it interesting if the Westminster government even allows a proper look at what happened during this pandemic.
But just beware, we've just fallen into the trap. We've spent the first 5 or 10 minutes talking about vaccinations, which suits the government, when in actual fact we should be talking about the worst death rate in the world, because it's even worse than yesterday today.
Well,
Stuart, the problem is nobody's talking about death rate. No government anywhere on the planet wants to talk about death rate. Well, maybe New Zealand, maybe Japan, but no other government wants to talk about it because they're absolutely out. It's absolutely out of the government's control. Admittedly, ours is worse. The reason it's worse is because we have an absolute shower of clowns trying to do the job of a government in London.
I think it's a wee bit nastier than that. Incompetent. A lot of them aren't incompetent. In fact, they're very competent. Not in doing the pandemic, but in getting money out of the Treasury.
Yeah.
That's all it's been. It's been a classic example of disaster capitalism. We can make money out of this.
That'll be why, as Norrie says, you'll never get a full public inquiry into anything that happened.
100 years, maybe?
Well, either that or there'll be 50 little ones that basically melt into being meaningless.
You'll get pandemic 1 like Leveson 1, but you'll never get to pandemic 2.
Oh, exactly. Phil, you're going to tell us about this YouGov poll that only you have got the details about.
No, well, it was in the Independent, and there was a High Court prosecution attempt, but the High Court blocked it, a private prosecution against Tony Blair. for war crimes. Now, according to a poll that was taken on the same day by YouGov, that's a poll of 3,264 adults, 33% thought he should be tried as a war criminal, as Mr. Blair knowingly misled Parliament and the public and should be tried as a war criminal. You know, the majority of those that wanted, of the 33%, were over 65. So I suppose that's where, you know, and 42% choosing that answer compared to only 26% of youngsters. Youngsters, I suppose, they're starting to look at, oh, that was a way in history, so it's just something in the history books.
Well, that's a good point, Phil, because the youngsters won't even know what we're talking about. We're actually talking about an illegal war as far as this country was concerned. Tony Blair took us into a war against Iraq on false information.
And it kind of slots neatly into what the Labour Party nationally has been landed with, right? I mean, this was all sorts of war crimes, and Westminster, apart from basically a handful of Labour MPs who voted against it, which was the spy cops, you know, where basically you actually get pardoned before you've even gone out and raped, murdered and tortured. That's what Blair, etc. and that did. And apparently, well, Starmer definitely doesn't disagree with him because they abstained, which, as far as I'm concerned, is the same as.
What did, sir, can you explain that? I know what you mean, but can you explain that?
Oh,
what did they abstain on?
Well, when it went, the spy cops bill was going through, which is basically giving, you know, free gratis to people from the British.
Which
security.
allows the British Secret Service.
Yeah, Secret Services, but actually, if you have a look at British Army engagements in places, you know, I can't really remember anybody getting prosecuted. So basically, go out and you'll get off with it. Now,
well, it's just really efficiency, isn't it? As you say, nobody ever gets prosecuted anyway. So why bother putting them through it all?
Well, what you're suggesting, Nori, is that this piece of legislation isn't necessary anyway, because when was any agent of the British Crown ever prosecuted or at least convicted of any serious offences?
That they do get prosecuted, but I can't.
Oh, that's for leaking.
Well, I can't think of anybody that's been sent to jail for it.
No.
I don't think they go out their way to make sure that's part of their fake military covenant as well to the army, isn't it? I think Blair should actually now, somebody should raise an action that Blair and Geoff Aberdein, his defence secretary, should be done for crimes against the British Army. Because not only did they send them to Iraq with shit equipment, they compounded that by sending them into Afghanistan a couple of years later with the same crap equipment that they knew couldn't withstand IEDs. Our guys were dropping like flies in Iraq from IEDs. And then they sent them into Afghanistan with the same cheap-ass bloody Land Rovers instead of buying decent gear. How many guys did we lose? How many guys came back with minus a leg, an arm, a hand or whatever? Because the Labour Party and Tony Blair sent them into an illegal war and sent them poorly equipped. That's what Blair should, somebody should now raise an issue. This should never be allowed to lie. Blair should never have a moment's peace until he climbs into his box and gets fried.
But when you look at the complexion of the Labour Party in Westminster, now Blair's trotting up. You know, I mean, sorry, but that Gordon Brown, well, he's just as complicit. So's Jack Straw. They're all complicit, the whole lot. I'm sorry, if there were Germans 80 years ago, they'd be sitting in the dock. The initial onslaught killed 250,000 people. I mean, that's not soldiers. They blew up hospitals, schools, apartment blocks. I'm sorry, they're barbarians. You know?
And they took great pleasure in showing all that on the news. Shock and awe. They got all excited about the news coverage and how fun it was. They didn't for a second think about the people they were destroying.
So it shows you what the British Labour Party is like when they're still entertaining these people as grandees and people to look up to. Appalling.
So what do you think, where would Tony Blair stand on the historical prime ministers in the last 20 years on popularity now?
Not at all. And that's a strange thing. Why actually the Labour Party, when you look at a poll like that, and considering the over 65s are probably the highest, you know, amongst actually going out to vote, and then they bring these creatures back again. I mean, I find it's appalling. They got dragged. Well, he's about the only one. That's because he's made enough money anyway. But all the rest, you need to drag him out the House of Lords anyway.
He'll be seen as the most successful Labour Prime Minister of all time, Stuart, because he won 3 elections. That's the sad thing about British politics. The fact that he won 3 elections means he is the most successful Labour Prime Minister, regardless of what he done. Look at Maggie Thatcher as probably the.
I was going to say, that's exactly the question. No, that's exactly the question I was going to ask Jimmy. What about the Tory Prime Ministers? I would say that actually in my lifetime, the most successful Tory Prime Minister was John Major. He rescued the party from the mess that Margaret Thatcher left them.
Yeah, but
I wouldn't go that far, mate. He basically spent 5 years fighting with his own backbenchers, knowing that he was going to lose the next election because,
yes, that's
frankly, he should never have won in '92. Again, Labour hibbsed it, to use a popular local term.
Younger.
If you look at Jeremy Corbyn in 2017, now they're all saying he's a loser, everything else. Jeremy Corbyn scored a bigger popular vote than Tony Blair's election in 2001 and 2005. It's just the vagaries of the corrupt British electoral system.
Well, he was even popular with young people. They were singing his name at Glastonbury. Hey, Jeremy Corbyn.
Sorry, lads, I'm really sorry. Jeremy Corbyn's a loser. He lost.
Right, well, let's talk about somebody that's apparently a winner, because there's a poll out here about. And I'd like to know who this guy is that writes for the National, the Joker. Looks like the Joker, but with an extra U thrown in. I'm suspect it's the editor. I'm using anyway. Nicola Sturgeon is England's favourite political leader, poll finds.
Yeah.
Now, why does that matter to us here in Scotland? You want to know what it is? Sturgeon leads the pack for voters in the UK as a whole. 42% approval, Johnson's 34%. Even in England, 41% of the people approve of the way she's doing her job, compared with 38% for Starmer, 34% for Johnson, and who knows about Davy?
Can I just point out, Stalin was pretty popular, so was Adolf Hitler.
Well, so was Donald Trump until the recent.
No, I think there's a very specific reason for that particular piece appearing in the National today, Stuart, and we all kind of know what it is. With all the fallout, and I know that the Anoraks are the only people who consider this at the moment, the story is slowly starting to cross over, judging by things like the Belfast Telegraph picking it up. But with all the stuff going on with what they call the SNP Civil War, but what is in fact Nicola Sturgeon's, or those close to Nicola Sturgeon, attempted political assassination of Alex Salmond. These stories are going to appear more and more from her friends in the media. She's so popular, she's remarkably popular, she's extraordinarily successful. You can't possibly bring her down over something that you can't prove she done.
Well, that's I'm not quite. Lesley Riddoch doesn't go that far in her column today, or was it yesterday? Women are increasingly turning to yes, but the reasons why remain unclear. And of course, there is the possibility that it's because it's Nicola Sturgeon and she's a woman. A few folk have asked, have not seen Plan B, which is another issue, of course. The reason people are talking about Plan B is because Nicola Sturgeon will only stick to Plan A, which is asking for a Section 30 order. In other words, giving permission of the British government to decide whether we have a democratic vote on whether we want to stay in Britain.
Was there a question in there somewhere?
It's a popularity one. She says here, perhaps women are driving a surge in support for Scottish independence. Now, this is a different point from what Jimmy brought up, but you could be right, Jimmy. It's a question of when you can boil down to it, people decided in the 2014 referendum on a question of risk. Was it riskier to go for an unknown independence or an existing UK? And the argument that Lesley makes is women are driving a surge because it's become the least risky option for the future, and that men tend to be risk takers, testosterone driven. Any mileage in that, guys?
Well, I don't think this whole idea, oh, why women are going to vote for Nicola Sturgeon because she's a woman. I mean, that's pretty crap, actually. Yeah. Yeah, they maybe think more. Maybe they're more intelligent men, but they're actually looking in horror at Westminster and that and seeing what's happened. And they, you know, like everybody else, realize that they've been lied to and lied to again. It's just people that is, no gender, waking up.
Yeah.
Well, here's the bit that'll get Jimmy going. The most visible change has certainly been the feminisation of the SNP. Beyond Nicola Sturgeon herself, charismatic personalities like Joanna Cherry and Mary Black, and powerful new cabinet members like Kate Forbes catch the ear and fill the headlines.
I'd love to ken how Mary's Black's either powerful or charismatic.
When was the last time?
She's done bugger all since she went down to Westminster.
Yeah. And apart from that, again, it's that thing, oh, there's all these women. I didn't hear anybody complaining when it was full of old middle-aged fat men in ill-fitting suits.
Well, you did, Phil. You heard women complaining at that point. We've still only got 30% of MSPs are women, but there has been a feminisation of the SNP. I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. I think some of them have been promoted way above their pay grade because they're friends of Nicola. I think we kind of know who's the ones that I'm talking about. I think, frankly, women are more liable to vote. Like Phil says, it's stupid. You talk about people. I think people are more liable to vote for Nicola Sturgeon because she's handled herself fantastically through this pandemic. She's proved to be a wonderful First Minister and an excellent administrator. The fact that I consider her a bit of a control freak is neither here nor there. That's just a part of her makeup that I don't particularly like. It's also why, just by the by, I don't believe for a second that she didn't know everything that was going on in the Salmond affair, because she finds it remarkably difficult to delegate. Extraordinarily difficult to delegate. Hence the reason that she pumps Angela Constance into being the Minister for Drug Policy, because Angela's basically Nicola's pal who will do exactly what she's told because Nicola wants to take that to herself. But I
don't think well, I'm not qualified to make that kind of statement about Nicola Sturgeon. And I'm certainly not qualified to tell you why women now support yes in bigger numbers. And I don't think any of us are.
Well, we've got one of our regular commenters, and this extends the topic of where we are at the moment. Jimmy, she says, as one of those female fans of the show, now it's not misandry because she's picking on you a little. It's revenge. It's tit for tat. It's how do you like it, boys? I do usually agree with your viewpoint to a great extent, but if we really had misandry, it would be women holding crossbows and machetes to kill men instead of the other way around.
Well, I'd just like to come back on that one and say that if women were holding crossbows and machetes, they're more liable to be cutting themselves and shooting themselves in the foot than they are killing men. I think I've known one woman in my entire life who was any good with a crossbow. Okay,
well, that'll get going. Then she also moves on to comment on what's happened to Robin McAlpine, which seems to be pretty dreadful. Robin McAlpine, widely respected on the left, not that many enemies, was chief executive or something of Commonweal.
He was the director,
whatever the name was, of Commonweal, a think tank, a left-wing think tank with a lot of members, independence members, even SNP members were also part of it. They have an SNP group. What she says about that is, what I do know is it's not misandry, not yet, although it could grow into that, because he was attacked dreadfully and he stood down at the moment. He said it could grow into that. Stoked by the pseudo woke warriors, it is far more likely to be suppressed rage, finding a target because Robin attacked Nicola Sturgeon. And if you think about it, these women, probably around Nicola, are likely to be members of the pseudo woke, the new torn-faced and self-righteous Puritans of the left. The wokists attack anyone, male or female, right or left, straight or gay, who does not fit their new world order. No
Are they related to Boadicea by any chance?
Sorry?
Are they related to Boadicea by any chance? That was the mental picture I got with these women, you know, hordes of these. I mean, oh God,
Phil, please, if you're gonna get the lassie's name right, it's Boudica.
Boudica, yeah.
I do think that there is a problem with the woke left not allowing subjects to be discussed.
Yes.
They call it cancel culture, don't they?
Yeah, and having scared enough people. I mean, sure, you and I have chosen not to talk about this on numerous occasions in public, because it's off the wall. You know, it's crazy.
Question. Right. So these people are people that don't believe that women are women, or women are women. You know, I mean, it starts to get really rather confusing. I mean, they're not women. I mean, apparently they're called CIS, which I still can't work that out. What is it? You know,
I don't think Robin McAlpine even touched on that subject, did he?
No. What happened?
Eddie Izzard's a woman. You know, this is it. She.
Eddie Izzard
a woman.
just likes to dress up as a woman. I mean, Eddie Izzard's quite upfront about what he is.
Have you looked at him? And have you seen the visual he puts up as a woman? That's what he thinks of women. A foul, misogynistic view, if that's what he thinks regular women look like. And I'm not being out there. Leave it at that.
Phil, he's never claimed to be trans.
He does now.
Does. Yeah, he's called, and he wants to be referred to as she. You know.
Well, I mean, let them do what they want, as long as it doesn't cost women rights.
That's the whole idea.
It's going to be, Phil, can I say, please?
Sorry.
It's an impossible circle to square. I can't see a way to do it. I can't see a way to be as fair as possible to the trans community without it having a cost. Because it's not about taking, you know, they don't want men's toilets turned unisex. They want women's toilets. You know, I'm quite happy to have anybody pee beside me at the trough. Doesn't bother me at all. And there's a lot of women aren't bothered by it.
Doesn't bother me either. When I've lived, you know, you travel around
but there are some women
the
who
continent. Frequently, there is only one toilet when you go to a bar. You know.
Well, but there are women who are very uncomfortable with it.
The problem with all of this is that the women's safe spaces that actually matter aren't toilets.
Yeah.
They're refuges. They're places of safety. And any woman who says that she doesn't want a trans woman in those places of safety is automatically shouted down as a transphobe, and is automatically, her views are dismissed because the trans allies insist upon telling women that their concerns are wrong. They don't want to listen to the concerns. They don't want to hear what these women have to say. They are just automatically wrong, and they insist upon not even having a debate about it. That's why the whole thing is so twisted and wrong. Can
I just rewind to where we began on this angle, which is that I think it was Phil that took, when the word woke came up, wokist, nobody mentioned trans at that point.
Yeah, but the wokerati automatically, that's where the debate goes.
Same thing, isn't it?
No, it can't be the same thing.
It's not the same thing.
It's not the same thing. However, it's relevant that you went there. I wasn't surprised you went there. It's this. I mean, I actually like what this commentator had said. The new torn-faced and self-righteous Puritans of the left. I mean, that rings bells.
Exactly. Political
The left
correctness.
always had that.
Political
Exactly.
correctness.
The
gone
left wing has
mad.
always been torn-faced, but the left wing has always been torn-faced with some kind of positive aim. I didn't see the positive aim of pushing the agenda of a tiny, tiny minority upon the entire community, particularly when that agenda is taking rights away from half of our community.
I can't see the way to make it work for everybody. And to be frank with you, I don't see much point talking about it until we work that out.
Well, can I rewind it back again to how we got to this topic? It was discussing Robin McAlpine and how he was forced to step down from a very valued left-wing independent sporting think tank, which is an important organization.
I didn't think they're an important organization. I think they're just another typical left-wing talking shop.
Yeah, well, I think they've proved, well, they've obviously proved themselves to be something that no longer worthy of respect. Certainly from me.
He stepped down as director. He's still involved with Commonweal. He hasn't left Commonweal.
Do you think he's still got all the secret passwords to all the?
Yeah, effectively.
They can't push him out.
As director. That's what he's done.
Well, look, and the thing is, of course, let's go back just another step. The reason why Robin McAlpine is being hated is because who was attacked? Nicola Sturgeon. And yet I introduced the name of Geoff Aberdein at the beginning of this show.
Wait a minute. He was attacked by women who accused him of being a misogynist.
Yes, well,
that's what happened. Various people came through the woodwork. Now,
but there'd be no fine. That was code because he'd attacked Nicola Sturgeon.
Until Bella Caledonia writes the article condemning Robin, I'm not believing a word of it. That was a joke.
Well, you should have seen, as I say, you should have seen the Stushy amongst Bella Caledonia supporters over the weekend. They were falling out big time over what Robin McAlpine had written. And I dare say some of those people I wouldn't know would be involved in Commonweal.
Yeah. Well, let's be honest, lefties fighting like ferrets in a sack, nothing new.
So where does that leave Alex Salmond, and where does that leave this inquiry into the behaviour?
Well, frankly, I think the inquiry's a nonsense after the decision not to publish or hear from Geoff Aberdein, because his evidence is the evidence that positively shows that Nicola Sturgeon either isn't the control freak with a half decent memory that we think we are and probably shouldn't be in charge of a school crossing, or that she's lied. And the fact that they choose not to publish or hear his evidence absolutely 100% for me confirms that this entire thing is a whitewash. I imagine that Nicola Sturgeon, when she gets time off, when she's not reading the books that she likes on a Saturday night, is at this very moment probably composing the report that Linda Fabiani is going to sign at the bottom, saying that it's Linda Fabiani's report.
Do you think that this is going to shut down the Stushy about the Alex Salmond conspiracy?
No, obviously not. Oh. It wouldn't matter if it was proven beyond all doubt that Nicola Sturgeon was 100% innocent. The opposition parties will do what all opposition parties do and spin it to say what suits them. And if she's guilty as hell, the SNP will spin it to say she isn't. It's politics, for God's sake, guys. That's what I'm actually astounded. What we should really be talking about is whether the politics of this have been played properly. Not whether it's true or not, because it doesn't matter if it's true or not.
I was going to widen it as well, Norrie, in the same way. You know, the argument over let's Biden now coming back in and the divisions that Trump has not necessarily created but exaggerated by 4 years as president of the USA. The whole Western world is now tribal. You're not allowed to be in the middle.
Sorry, the Tory
made over the last couple of days. So I mean, here in Scottish politics, you're either, if you're an independista, you're either pro Nicola or you're not. You're not allowed to be a rational thinker, thinking your position through in the middle, are you?
I think you're completely wrong there, Stuart. Of course you're allowed to be a rational thinker. Not everybody takes sides. I would say, I mean, you're coming for the argument there of an anorak, a geek like the rest of us. The people out there in the real world don't give a monkeys.
Oh.
They just want to look at Nicola Sturgeon and go, is she doing a decent job? Is she going to win this election? What's she going to do for me? They didn't really care.
No, absolutely.
I think the Geoff Aberdein thing, because it's been picked up. I mean, it's been picked up by Belfast, the Belfast Telegraph. There will be a couple of pieces in Canada and America and Australia about this, but the reality is this story is not going to go much further.
No, I think you're right.
They must surely have given a reason for not publishing it.
No, mate, it's Linda Fabiani. She doesn't need to give you a reason.
It's not data protection, nothing like that.
Well, we've not heard the reason yet. Put it that way. They've just said that they're not going to consider or publish it.
I'm surprised they didn't just have her, because they're running out of time anyway.
They're not really, mate. It's only January. They didn't have to report till April.
We've got the midterm break coming up for Holyrood.
Well, we've got, what's his face back? Mr. Murrell's back on the 9th. Is it the 9th of February?
Is he?
Or is Nick? I think he might be back next week, and then Nicola the week after. I'm really not sure. But Alex hasn't agreed to a date yet, so.
Oh, Alex will want a date after Nicola.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I think he's going to want to see what she's got to say.
Because he's playing politics as well.
See, you can say he's playing politics, mate, but he's the one that would have ended up in jail through all this. Nicola never risked anything, really.
I'm not talking about justification. I'm talking about my argument that it's politics. Truth's got very little to do with it, Jimmy.
I think we're running out of original things to say about this again. We return to this topic day after day.
Well, you're the one that brought it up.
I'll take the responsibility today that it was me today. Right, now who else is sitting there gagging to say something?
Well,
about something else.
Do you want a bit of humour?
No,
Great bit of humour, right? A 27-year-old called Joseph Levy. He's lived in Spain. He's British. He's lived in Spain for 20 years, and he lives not that far along the coast from Gibraltar. So he went to Gibraltar because he'd been seeing this thing about Nando's. So he's got these jars of Nando things and flatbreads and all sorts. And he's coming back to Spain to have a scoff, and he gets stopped. And the customs went, but he spent 42 quid. But all he got to take across the border was 8 quid, because they took all his Nando, took all his breads, all his things that had everything. And the sad thing is, he voted against Brexit. So just remember, if you go to Spain, you go to Gibraltar, you can't bring anything back. I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah, well, you can, as long as you're not a British passport holder.
Yeah, as long as you're European, you can. I like the Dutch stopping the boy and taking his ham sandwich off him.
Yeah, that was quality. I'd just like to, before we finish, welcome Jen Psaki to the job of White House Press Secretary.
Oh, good one.
I watched the first
good one.
press conference with her last night, and I was delighted. The ginger CJ. I think she's going to be a hell of entertaining to watch over the next few years.
I didn't get your I didn't get the CJ part of it. What does that mean, CJ?
CJ Craig was Bartlett's press secretary in the West Wing, mate. She also was a very capable and very attractive woman.
All right, yeah. Now, I watched her last night. She was 5-star. Boy,
yeah.
But how could you not be after Donald Trump?
Exactly. Donald seemed to went through press secretaries like Celtic goes through pints in Dubai, but they were all absolutely useless at the job. That's the first press secretary that's actually looked like a press secretary in 4 years in Washington.
Oh, she was capable of answering unanticipated questions. No, she was honestly, I was impressed. Accidentally just got it.
Did anybody hear Bette Midler's song? I'm pretty sure I sent it to you. Goodbye, Donny.
No.
Yeah. Well, you should have it. Goodbye, Donny. It's absolutely.
You'll forgive me, Philip, but if you sent me a clip of Bette Midler singing, you can absolutely 100% guarantee I wouldn't have opened it.
Oh no, the lyrics, because they've changed it. It's absolutely hilarious. Democrats posted it, by the way.
Are you watching the time, Stuart?
We're all right. However, we seem to be running out of anything but bad jokes at the moment. So let's wind up and say thank you very much, Norrie Stewart.
Cheers.
Smile, everybody. Smile. Everybody smile, because we got a post saying that was good. You were all smiling, so smile, folks.
Okay,
bye.
and
This
goodbye,
is more
Jimmy
of a grimace,
Hutton.
it's close as you get.
And it's goodbye
Cheers.
from me. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Cheers.